Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ziad Abdelnour. I'm chairman and founder of the Financial Policy Council, and I'm president and CEO of Blackhawk Partners. This is the first event of the year. We usually have 5 events during the year, inviting very controversial and prominent speakers to address some current affairs and issues. We are not a political organization. That's one. We are neither Democrats nor Republicans. We are patriots. We are wealth creators. We are capitalists. And we want to get this country back on the right track. We will fight Republicans, Democrats, and whoever that will come along the way and who doesn't have a clue of what they're talking about. For us, business and wealth creation is all about gathering intelligence. It's like going to war. It's not the size of your army. Same thing in business. It's not the size of your balance sheet. It's not how smart you are, but it's the intel you have gathered to come up with very strong arguments to win the war, to win business, and to win some causes. We're here fighting for a cause. It's wealth creation. That's what matters. This is what differentiates us from every think tank out there. 1. 2, we're not bankrolled by any investment bank, Wall Street bank, or somebody who thinks it's that important. We're not bankrolled by the Goldmans, by the Morgans, by anyone. We are funding this ourselves so far. So we are very independent in our line of thinking, and this will not change. We're not going to be bankrolled by anyone. We're not serving a political interest, neither Democrat nor Republican. First, I'd like to thank the board, the 20 board members who made this happen and are making everything happen. Please stand up, all of you. A big applause for that. To make a long story short, I'm not here to do speeches, but it's important you understand where we're coming from. The major problem in the world today, I believe, is that there aren't enough problem solvers. A lot of guys bitching and moaning about this and that. Very few people proposing real, tangible solutions, unemotional solutions. Everything in Congress is emotions. Even on Wall Street, it's all about emotions. We're not here to win emotion. We're here to present very tangible facts and arguments and win in that respect. You can disagree with me, as a lot of people disagreed in my book, but you cannot disagree on the facts. The facts are the facts. Unfortunately, today we live in an age of sound bites, where people's attention span is very limited. They don't read, they don't do any due diligence, they will vote for this guy or that guy, or listen to this trend or that, just because they like the way he looks, or the way he talks, or this and that. It's all superficial. Nobody's digging really deep. What is the issue here? A lot of people today, frankly, don't even know what their self-interests are. They're so drowned in all the crap out there, they don't know anymore what are their self-interests because they don't do their homework. So number 1, Big Brother is not here to help you. Government is not here to help you. Your neighbor is not here to help you. You have to be self-sustaining cash flow machine to create wealth. And wealth is about is freedom, nothing else. It's not how many cars, toys, etc. you're going to acquire. Is that you acquire wealth, you have now an independent mind, and now you're free to say whatever you want and to even challenge Big Brother. Look, as I say it in my book, there's an economic warfare today happening between Big Brother, the wealth takers, I call them, and the wealth creators, us, the entrepreneurs. So far, they're winning the war because they've become intrusive, they're in every single aspect of your lives. The way you win wars, you create wealth, and you eat their heart out. The more you create wealth, the more independent you're going to be, the more you're not going to take their shit, nor anybody's shit. And I say the word as it is. That's what it is. You create independent, you become wealthy, you become free, and you start dictating your goals. Look, today there is 6-7 million millionaires in America. That's all. Those with a net worth of 1 million and more. Well, I'd like to see over the next 4, 8 years, 20 years, I hope to live another 50 years, 50 million millionaires. Because the more millionaires we have, and my job, my mandate is to create millionaires. That's what I want my legacy to be, to create more millionaires. The more millionaires we have, and the more wealth creators we have, the more we're going to be a force that's independent, who's going to dictate what we really want and take our country back versus Big Brother. This is as raw as it is. And all the rest you hear is crap. Who controls the money wins and dictates his agenda. Is it going to be Big Brother or you? I want you to be fully aware of this and what we at the FPC are trying to do in here. We're not here to talk about theories and stuff like that. Plenty of them out there. John Maynard Keynes, Keynesian economics. This is all crap. How are you going to make money? How are you going to beat the system and make a shitload of money? That's my only concern. And that's what should be your only concern. As bluntly as it is. No think tank will talk to you like this because, this is not proper. We're not here to do proper. We're here to do right. It's not style, it's substance. What are you in here for? You're spending the most productive, most important years of your life. What? Going to college and working for big corporate America to dictate to you what they want you to be, to steal the best years of your life and control your lives? If you're not controlled by corporate America, you're controlled by Big Brother? Wake up. Anyway, this is not a speech, but I wanted to give this as a background for future events. This is what we're here for. We're here for wealth creation. And you know what? We're proud of it. And we're not going to mince our words and say we're not here for that. That's all that counts. Anyway, speaker today, we have Dr. Yaron Brooke, Executive Director of the Ayn Rand Institute. I love Ayn Rand. I've always been, frankly, she shaped my life, my career. I read Ayn Rand when I was very young. I read a lot, and I kept reading her again and again. One of my favorite quotes for Ayn Rand, only the man who does not need it is fit to inherit wealth. The man who would make his own fortune, no matter where he started, if an heir is equal to his money, it serves him. If not, it destroys him. That's beautiful. There's so many of them. That's one of my favorite. So to come back to Dr. Brooke, Dr. Brooke, being an Israeli born, he already has the fighting spirit, and I like that. And now he's fighting in this country, having left Israel, for, our rights, for wealth creation, to understand those core issues. I don't think there is a better person than Dr. Brooke to head the Ayn Rand Institute, frankly, because he's very attached to it. You feel the passion, you feel the know-how, and you feel the experience. I can read for you tons of stuff about where he worked, where he went to college. It's not important. I don't judge people where they went to college. I judge them on what's here, inside, in their gut. You've seen his background. I don't want to go over this again. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Yaron Brooke.
That's one of the best introductions I've ever gotten. That's great. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. Thanks, you board members, for inviting me. Wealth creation. It's really interesting, right? Because we live in a time where, as I see it, there's a real mystery out there. Because there's this split that we live in. On the one hand, you know, people are telling us that, you know, or put it this way, wealth creation, we know how to do it. We know how to create wealth. We know what systems create wealth. We've got a history of wealth creation. All of human history is a laboratory, has been a laboratory for what political economic systems work to create wealth and what political economic systems don't work to create wealth. For the last 250 years, we've run a grand experiment. Right? What works, what doesn't. We know, for example, that when you free people up, when you leave them alone, you protect their property rights, but otherwise leave them alone, what happens? Wealth is created like nobody's ever seen in human history. You know, the United States in 1776 was like a third-rate colony. The British barely fought us. By 1914, the mightiest country from an industrial perspective, economic perspective, the world had ever seen. What happened in those 140 years? Big brother? No, the opposite. Freedom. Freedom's what happened. People were left alone. Right? They weren't told what to do. And what happens when you leave people alone and you protect their rights, which is a very important feature of this, you protect property, you define property, you have contracts, is they create huge amounts of wealth. And they live pretty well, right? They prosper. Life expectancy more than doubled during this period. It's not only about money. It's what money makes possible. Wealth makes health possible. In 1776, how many kids were working? Talk about child labor. I like controversial topics. How many kids were working in 1776? All of them. All of them. They were in the farm. They were working from daybreak to sunset. Right? And most of them were dead by the age of 10. That's just a statistical fact. 1914, how many kids were working? Almost none. A few here and there maybe, but almost none. Why almost none? Because parents don't want their kids to work if they can afford to do something different with them. Because parents were not wealthy enough to be able to afford to feed their kids, they didn't have to send their kids to work. They could send and get them educated. So I could spend hours just talking about the wonders of capitalism, but I want to get to a more important point. And that is, the important point is this. We're abandoning this system. The system that has created all this good. We're turning our backs on it. And we have been turning our backs on it for 100 years. This is not new. This is not, you know, everybody wants to blame everything on Obama. But this is not new. This goes back at least 100 years. 100 years is a nice number because the first real progressive president was elected 100 years ago, which was Wilson, who brought us both the income tax and the Federal Reserve and World War I and a bunch of other things, bad things. For 100 years, we've been abandoning, moving away from this amazing system. It worked, and yet we don't want it. And we're accelerating the movement away from this system today. And it's not just that you need American history to see this, because my argument is the fact that capitalism works, the fact that it is the greatest system invented by mankind for wealth creation, for prosperity, for a good life, that there's nothing that comes even close to this, should be self-evident. All you should need is eyes to see it. Because you can see, if you know history, you know what life was like before the Industrial Revolution, before capitalism. You know what life is today. You can see what happened in the middle. But look, we've run an experiment, right? So we tried as close as we've ever come to capitalism, 19th century America. We tried communism. Right? It sucks. People die. Tens of millions of people die. Talk about wealth creation. It is one of the most efficient wealth-destroying systems in human history. We tried it, doesn't work. Okay, so we abandoned communism. So now we want to try every little variation in between. The mixed economy. Some socialism with some elements of capitalism, some big brother, some elements of freedom. We try all these, and you can put them on a graph. You can take all the countries of the world and put them on the graph of how much they give freedom versus, and what do you get? You get a pretty clear relationship. The bigger the piece that's free, the better wealth creation is, economic growth is, prosperity is. The more the socialist part is, the bigger that is, the worse off everybody is. So what do we do in the West? We move towards socialism. Because it works so well? It can't be that. One of my favorite places in the world is Hong Kong. I don't know how many people have been to Hong Kong? Oh, this is a well-traveled audience. That's good. I always tell people, before you die, you have to go visit this place. It's stunning. Hong Kong, 75 years ago, was a fishing village. There was nobody there. It's a rock in the middle of nowhere. Today, it has as many skyscrapers as New York City does. Wealth per capita, GDP per capita in Hong Kong is equal to the United States. What do they have in Hong Kong? And where did all these people come from? Well, they swam there, basically. They got on rafts, they got on boats, they would do anything to get there. They escaped all the other countries in Asia to get to this little rock in the middle of nowhere. Why? Oh, because they provide a great safety net. That's what the left would, yeah, right? Safety nets, that's what attracts people. No, there's no safety net in Hong Kong. It's very minute. What do they have in Hong Kong? They protect property rights, contract law, that's it. Government leaves you alone otherwise, for the most part. And millions of people came and thrived. So it's right there. The example of it's right there in front of us. And we ignore it. We pretend it's not there. China, when it was really communist, they free it up a little bit in just certain parts of China. What happens? Boom, wealth creation. There's no mystery here, right? So what do we do in the West? Turn our back on that, go the other way. And we have all the economic theories in the world to explain this. This is not some weird empirical observation that we don't know why it happens, right? We have great economists, you know, Mises and Hayek and Friedman. They've told us all these. They've told us exactly why this happens. We understand it. You know, we understand incentives. We understand freedom. We understand what goes on. We understand economics. In spite, you know, Keynes distorted it all, right? But they're good theories that explain why capitalism works. So what do? Turn our back away from it and go Keynes and Marx direction because they're so successful. They've been complete failures. We're getting to that. My solution is hard. It's not an easy solution. So what's the problem? Well, what's capitalism about? What's the essential characteristic of markets? What does Steve Jobs, why does Steve Jobs build one of these? Why does he build one of these? Simplicity, he doesn't, that's not why he builds it. Why does he build it? Why do you go to work? To make money, wealth creation, to make money. And even in this audience, it's hard to get you to say it because you feel a little embarrassed by it, right? Right? You don't, but they do. Believe me, they do. All audiences do. You go to work to make money. And yeah, you enjoy it, and you have fun, and you want a simple product, and you want to make something beautiful, all that. But Steve Jobs built this for whom? For himself. These things have great profit margins, and he loved it, and he did it to satisfy himself. Right? And when I bought my first iPhone, it was 2008, and I went to the mall in 2008 because I wanted to stimulate the U.S. economy. Because I know why that's why you guys go to the mall. You guys go to the mall because you want to make sure people have jobs. You care about your fellow man. You see, you're not laughing because you're not sure if I'm serious or not, right? I mean, that's nuts. Nobody goes to the mall for that. Why do you go to the mall? To buy stuff for whom? For you. You want to make yourself better, more productive, look better, whatever it is. It's for you. What are markets about? Do we keep your wife happy? Absolutely. What could be more selfish than that? What are markets about? All markets. They're about people pursuing their self-interest. Markets about people pursuing their self-interest. Yet, what are we being taught about self-interest from when we're this big? I was raised by a good Jewish mother, but I have a feeling this is kind of universal. She taught me to think of myself last. Think of others first. When we think about noble, when we think about good, when we think about moral, ethical, heroes, we think about what? Others. Self-sacrifice. We think about giving. We think about, selfless behavior. We think about the whole idea of others. When we talk about self-interest or selfish, bad. It's all associated with bad. Yet the marketplace is about what? It's about self-interested behavior. See, people don't vote their pocketbooks. People do not vote their pocketbooks. People vote, again, most people, right? Covered company may be excluded, right? People vote what they think is right, what they think is just, what they think is good. How many counties in the United States, the richest 10, voted for Obama? Which means, by the way, if you were rich and you voted for Obama, you voted for yourself a tax increase because he told you he was going to increase his taxes on you. How many of the 10 richest counties in America voted for Obama? 8. Including Silicon Valley. Right? People vote what they think is right, what they think is just, what they think is good, and markets are what? They are selfish, self-interested. And we've been taught since we were this big that self-interest is evil, is bad. And the justice and goodness is about redistribution. It's about giving. And I'll give you this perfect example of this. Bill Gates. Everybody knows who Bill Gates is, right? Made $70 billion at Microsoft. Doing what? What's that? Selling something, right? Making the world a better place. He made $70 billion at Microsoft, making the world a better place to live. For how many people? Like 6 billion. I don't know a person on the planet who hasn't been touched by Bill Gates, by Microsoft. The fact that he systematized all computing, the fact that we have an internet, Bill Gates get a big credit for all of that. Right? Because when you buy a piece of software from Bill Gates for $100, how much is it worth to you? More than $100, otherwise you wouldn't get up and buy it, right? More than $100. Turns out a lot more than $100. Thousands and thousands, if not more than that, right? How much is it worth to Microsoft? Less. They make a profit. Your life is better off. So all the people who bought stuff from Microsoft, their lives are better off by orders of magnitude. So about 6 billion people on the planet have been touched by Microsoft in one way or another. How much moral, ethical credit does Bill Gates get for that? 0. He gets negative. You know why? Because he dared to make money while touching people. When does Bill Gates become a good guy? When he starts giving it away. And he leaves Microsoft, because if he's still in Microsoft, that's no good. He leaves Microsoft and he starts giving it away. And he gives it away, now he's a good guy. So building stuff, making stuff, producing stuff, creating jobs, creating wealth, that our culture frowns upon because it's selfish. It's self-interested. And we've been taught that that is evil, that that is wrong, that is bad. What does the culture value? Well, what would make Bill Gates a saint? Because we don't completely buy into this giving stuff because he seems to be enjoying it. So we're a little skeptical about him, right? What would make it so that Bill Gates became a hero, a moral giant? He'd have to give it all away, move into a tent, and if he could show some blood, then we'd be willing to put him up there with Mother Teresa, right? Then he's in. But that's nuts, because Bill Gates, with all the wonderful charitable activities that he's doing, is not going to touch a tiniest, a fraction of the number of people he touched with Microsoft. He won't. Charity and community service, fine. Those are all fine. They don't matter in the big picture. It doesn't matter. What matters is the work you do. What matters is the wealth creation. What matters is what you build and create. The United States didn't go from 1776 to 1914. It didn't grow and become a success because of charity and community service. It became the mightiest economic power in the world because of businessmen, because of wealth creation, because of those greedy bastards, right? But why is the bastards associated with greed? It's because they pursued money. They pursued wealth. They pursued success. They pursued their own values. They pursued their own self-interest. But self-interest is bad. We are told. You have to take care of others. That's your primary responsibility in life. You are your brother's keeper. Love thy neighbor like yourself. Why? Why should I love my neighbor like myself? I don't. I'll admit it right here on stage. I love me much more than I love my neighbor. And I'll tell you this, so do you. This is the test I give audiences. Because somebody will always raise their hand. No, I love my neighbor like myself. I say, but do you love their kids like you love your kids? No, nobody says that. And you shouldn't. It would be immoral if you loved the neighbor's kids more than you love your own. These are yours. Yours, which means you should love them more. That whole mentality, which dominates the world we live in, it dominates the culture we live in, is wrong. It is consistent with socialism. It is consistent ultimately with communism. And it is why we drift leftwards. Because all the Republicans say is, yes, I am your brother's keeper. Rand Paul just said it recently. Rand Paul just said it recently in an interview. Yes, I'm my brother's keeper. I just think the government shouldn't do it. Really? Why? Why not use force on people? If it's the right thing to do, if it's your moral obligation to help any stranger out there, I can make it more efficient. Me, the government. I'll just take the money instead of relying on your self-interest to give it out. I'll take it and I'll distribute for it for all kinds of strangers who you don't know. If your primary moral obligation in life is to live for other people, government is your solution. And it is for 99% of the people out there. Not because they thought about what moral code they want to believe in, but because they've been brainwashed into this moral code. It's our priests, it's our philosophers, it's our teachers, it's our professors. They've been hammering away. Your life's not yours. You owe it to the community. Don't go into wealth creation. Michelle Obama said this. God forbid graduates from college should go and make money. Go work for the government. Go work for nonprofits. That's noble. That's good. That's charitable. Why don't we trust businessmen? Whenever there's a financial crisis, who do we blame? Wall Street in particular, business in general, bankers in particular. Why? For 2,000 years, we've been bankers for every financial crisis there is. Even though economists later know none of that is true. Why? Because they're selfish, and we know selfish people do bad things. Why was Sarbanes-Oxley passed? Because 5 guys stole from their corporations. 5 bad guys. But we blamed every American businessman. So we put a government spy on the shoulder, it's called Sarbanes-Oxley, to supervise every number you put in. Right? We don't trust businessmen because they're self-interested. Nakedly so. Who is the most naked of all businessmen? Like Bill Gates can hide behind Microsoft, behind a product that you all use. But who can't hide behind anything? The banker. Because it's very difficult to explain what bankers do. Incredibly valuable. I don't believe capitalism can exist without them. I don't think the Industrial Revolution can happen without them. There's nothing more valuable than the distributors of capital in all forms, and yet they can't hide behind a product. They're naked. So they get attacked first. They're the most self-interested of all. They're all about money. So, my solution, my really hard solution, we have to change this attitude. So when I talk about a revolution, and this country needs a revolution. Hopefully not an armed one, because we'll lose an armed one. They have nukes and stuff. What we need is an intellectual revolution. But I'm not talking about an economic revolution. We won the economic argument 100+ years ago. There is no economic argument. I don't care what Paul Krugman puts out. It's lies, it's BS, and it should be called, it's not economics. Paul Krugman is not an economist. He's not an economist. Read his economic textbook and read his New York Times columns, and they contradict each other. Because what he does in the New York Times is not economics. These guys lie. They don't look. They don't see Hong Kong. They don't see America. They don't see this history. They shut their eyes and pretend it all doesn't exist. The real revolution that's necessary is a moral, ethical revolution. We need to reject the idea that nobility comes from serving others. It doesn't. Nobility comes from making your life the best life that it can be. Nobility comes from living a full, flourishing life. Now this is Ayn Rand, but if you think a little further back in history, this is Aristotle, probably the greatest thinker in human history. Morality for Aristotle is not about serving. It's about how do I make the best life that I can have. It's about what virtues should I follow as a human being to make my life the happiest, most flourishing that it can be. That's what morality should be about. That's what ethics, that's what we should be taught. What are the virtues that lead to success? What are the vices that lead to failure? Well, let's see. Lying, is it a vice or a virtue? Well, let's study Bernie Madoff and see. Did it lead to success? Did it lead to happiness? Did it lead to prosperity? No. And not just because he was caught and went to jail, but because he lied and lived a miserable, pathetic life even before they caught him. Just ask Bernie. He'll tell you. Lying is a bad strategy for a flourishing life. So what we need is an ethical revolution to reject the idea of the moral purpose of your life is to serve other people and embrace an idea of self-interest, rational, long-term self-interest, living for yourself. And one of the characteristics of a person living for himself is you want to take care of yourself. You want to be able to flourish spiritually and materially. You want to be a wealth creator. You don't want to live on other people's dime. If you live on other people's dime, you get no self-esteem. If you have no self-esteem, right? Self-esteem comes from achievement, comes from attaining something, from setting goals. It comes from your work that you do. It comes from knowing you are producing. It comes from knowing you can take care of your family, of the people you love. When you're dependent, it destroys your self-esteem. Poor people who get checks from the government are being destroyed.
5 more minutes.
5. Okay. I thought he was going to shut me down. So what we need is to embrace an idea about being productive, being creators. And, you know, some of us choose to be wealth creators on a grand scale. Some of us choose to be wealth creators on a smaller scale. I mean, I chose to teach. I love teaching. I could have gone to Wall Street, a PhD in finance, could have gone to Wall Street, chose not to. It's not about money. Wealth creation is not about money. It's about freedom. It's about passion. It's about what makes you happy, but rationally happy, because what you're pursuing are real values. So what we need to teach our kids when they're this big and on is to think about themselves, is to be selfish. Now that sounds harsh, right? What we need in this country is for people to be selfish. But in my view, being selfish is hard work. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life. Selfish is not about, ooh, I want to get high, so there's the cocaine, right? Selfish is about sitting down and thinking, using this. What is going to make my life, the best life that I can have over the next 40, 50, 60 years? That's not easy. It's not easy. It means dedicating yourself to thinking, to using your mind to figure stuff out. Not just emoting, not just doing whatever feels good, but doing what is really good, which you can only figure out by using your reason, by using your rational thought. So if we want to save this country, which is the bottom line, what we need is to resurrect the spirit that existed here. It existed here 150 years ago. It existed here 200 years ago. It existed at the founding, a spirit of individualism, a spirit of individuals. All those immigrants who came to America didn't come here for the common good. They came here to make their lives better. They came here to pursue happiness. They came here to create wealth for themselves. That spirit of individualism was coded into our founding documents. So the spirit of a new America has to be founded on the Declaration of Independence, which in my view is the most important document in human history, political document in human history. And it says there that each one of us has an inalienable right. Inalienable. Nobody can take this away. not a majority of 99% even. An inalienable right to our own lives, to live for ourselves, to pursue our values, without anybody telling us, forcing us not to do it otherwise. No government involvement in our lives. We have a right to liberty, inalienable, to think whatever thoughts we want and to act on them. We have a right to make mistakes and learn or not learn from them. And if you don't learn from them, suffer the consequences. And in the most self-interested statement in political history, every individual has a right to pursue his own happiness. Now, if we can resurrect that spirit, the spirit of the pursuit of happiness, we win. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.